Good afternoon. My guess is that quite a few of you probably don't know who Barry-Wehmiller is. We are not the jeweler. Barry-Wehmiller is an American manufacturing company with a 130-year history in St. Louis. There we go. I missed the first 100 years of that, but I started with them about 29 years ago now, when we were a $35 million operation, and we were just coming out of a near bankruptcy. Since then, we've made a remarkable difference, or made a remarkable change. What Barry-Wehmiller does is we make large capital equipment for the packaging industry. So if you get something in a bag, a box, a can, a bottle, it probably came off of one of our pieces of equipment. Some of our equipment is as large as this room. If you've ever been to an Anheuser-Busch tour, and you saw bottles flowing through, that's on Barry-Wehmiller equipment. So the first 100 years, we were pretty much traditional. In the 80s, we nearly bellied up, as I said. Bob Chapman, who is the owner, CEO, chairman of the company, it is a privately held company, took 4 companies that he had acquired in the 70s, put them on the London Stock Exchange, and miraculously was oversold by some 35 million, and that created the nest egg that launched the new Barry-Wehmiller, if you will. And that's about the time, again, that I joined the company. So today, there we are. Yep, we've got approximately 11,000 hearts. This slide's difficult to keep current because we acquire, 80% of our growth comes from acquisition, 20% is organic growth, and it's pretty rapid. When I started with the company, we were 35 million. We're now about 2.5 billion. We had a handful of people here in St. Louis. We now have 11,000 hearts across the globe. We had some 3 rooftops at that time, 2 here in St. Louis, 1 in Florida. We now have 125 plus rooftops. At the end of this week, it'll be 130. There's 30 plus countries, 80 plus companies that we've acquired in that time span in that last 30 years. And as I said, we're now a $2.5 billion diversified business. This is kind of a boring slide. It's just, we're structured in platforms. We have 3 manufacturing platforms, a consulting business, and a private equity arm that we started about 5 years ago. This slide simply shows that we went from being a company that sold bottle washers and pasteurizers, and we knew ourselves as a machine manufacturer with mainly one customer, Anheuser-Busch, to a company now that has the market depth, serving a lot of industries, different geographies, and multiple platforms. So we're no longer dependent on any one faction of manufacturing, and that's come to prove beneficial multiple times. In October of 2015, Bob Chapman put out a book. It's called Everybody Matters, and it's focused on the culture and leadership principles of Barry-Wehmiller that he's used over the years. And I remember one of the board members told him that, Bob, no one reads a how-to book on a broken company. You damn well better keep this record up. And that's, we're a little less than that now. I think we're at 17%. More and more difficult to retain that kind of level as you get as big as we are. Clearly, our 30-year record would tell you that we have a pretty sound business. You cannot today, anyway, anyone from Barry-Wehmiller, we cannot talk about Barry-Wehmiller without talking about our culture. If you go to our website, it's very difficult to determine what it is we do for a living because Bob insists that we spend the bulk of our time explaining our culture and our leadership principles. And through that period of 87 to 2000, our mission statements focused on 3 things. growth, value, and liquidity. It wasn't people. Now, we were generally known as a kind company, but when you're growing out of bankruptcy to what we were doing, you were doing it fast and furious. In 2000, we were a very, very healthy company, and our leadership brought together several of the folks around the globe and said, you know, what kind of company should we be? What kind of company do you want to work for? And so they articulated something called our Guiding Principles of Leadership, or GPLs. And these are not just words that we have on a piece of paper. You won't see any logos. You won't see us wearing it on our shirts. This is something that we try to live every day. Words like pride, meaningful roles, trust, celebrate, responsible freedom, stewardship. These are all words that mean a lot to us, and it's a very, very people-centric organization. Example of that is in the 2008 period when the financial crisis hit. Barry-Wehmiller lost a lot of orders, and the board looked to Bob and said, okay, where are you going to lay off? And his response was, that's not what a caring family would do. We're not going to do that. We're going to lay everybody off. So everybody is going to take a 1-month furlough. And those that can take more will take more. The interesting thing about that was that we created a website that documented what people did with their furloughs. They went back to Europe to visit families that they would never have had the time to do before. They took church missions. They did all these kinds of things. And we were able to put that on the website, and the entire group is stronger because we didn't lay people off. We thought about them before we did the business. But the way we bring our message to life, there are empowerment programs. A good example of this is the way Bob thinks, which is unique, I might say. He was in one of our sites, and they were doing it was during March Madness coming up here, and everybody standing around the coffee was talking about who they're betting on, all this. They're having a great time, having a lot of fun. Around 8 o'clock, everybody went to their desks, and you could see the letdown. Nobody was having fun anymore. They just went to work. And he said, you know, we ought to be able to make work fun. And so he created games that allowed us to compete on a daily basis. If you make 10,000 in part sales today, you get $100. If your team makes 100,000, you get 50 extra bucks. So we try to put into action this idea of engaging our people and focusing on them, having some fun with work, making it a place that is welcoming. Our safety and wellness is another good example. Most people, when they look at their safety and wellness programs, they go after it because they're trying to save costs, reduce lost time accidents. That was not our goal. Our goal was we truly want to send our folks home fulfilled, well, and safe, and hopefully that they would take that to their families and make sure that it's manifests itself there as well. So it's just a different way of conducting business. It's our culture, our leadership. I say the true test of this for me is that I would love if my children could end up working at Barry-Wehmiller. But it is a culture and a philosophy that now is part of our DNA. It's in everything that we do. We have a Barry-Wehmiller University. There are 10,000 airmen over at Scott Air Force Base that have taken our communications course. The 49ers have adopted some of our leadership principles. So it's kind of getting out there. So my topic today was acquisitions. And I bring up all of that simply so that DNA makes its way into the way we approach acquisitions as well. We've done 80 plus acquisitions in my tenure over the last 29 years. And again, even while we're doing this, 80% growth through acquisition, we're doing 20% organic. Next one, okay. there are very few surprises in what we do. We know the companies, we know the industry. We've done one hostile takeover of a company early. We found that that was not a rewarding experience. It was financially, but it was not culturally. And so we just don't do those. We avoid those. We don't go after competitors. We'd rather take market share in other ways. So there's normally a lengthy courtship. We know them. It's rarely hostile. It's very purposeful. Everything that we do is purposeful. We're not unique, the same as anyone here that does acquisitions. You're going to find that we've got that checklist. We've got those leadership meetings. We engage our extended teams, especially if we're overseas. We've got our attorneys and our consultants. We open up online sites for various sharing. We've got the vaults. I will tell you that it is from the start something that IT is a part of. We're always in the pipeline. We know exactly what's coming down, and we're part of the due diligence before, not after. And that's proven very beneficial, especially as over the years, more and more of our acquisitions involve international play. And so when you're dealing with the works councils in Germany, where they get to veto the fact that you want to take your email out to the cloud, it changes the dynamics of how you conduct business and how you conduct acquisitions. And if you haven't got the right culture for that, you're going to have a really, really tough time. Where we might differentiate from some is that in many companies you'll find that there's an acquisition team at corporate. We have that team as well. However, it's rarely used. At this point in time, that's only going to be used for if we do a $500 million or $300 million platform buy, we might have our corporate team go in. But what we do now is the divisions that are ultimately going to be responsible for that acquisition are the ones that actually do the due diligence. We're there to coach them, to support them, but they own it. They went in and decided they wanted that company. They went in and did the due diligence on that company, and now it's their responsibility to make sure that it gets integrated and performs in the fashion they thought it should. Throughout, we don't go into an acquisition with the idea, where can I slice people or services? Again, we think that's a false savings. Ultimately, that's going to destroy what we just bought. We buy for the long haul. We've never sold, since '87, one of our companies that we've acquired. So we're looking for those gems. We're looking for those people that were ignored by leadership that could have contributed to the success of the company. We're not looking to cut people, we're looking to find those gems. We introduce our culture very, very early. We spend as much time on what we're going to invest in, how we're going to grow this, as we talk about cost and where there are areas that we might need to discard because they're just not going to work out in the future. And we try to ultimately create a compelling vision for the people that we're about to introduce into our family. Because again, with our culture, we believe that you lead by inspiring, by persuading, not by edict. And if you can get people to support that, you're going to find that that acquisition is going to go far smoother. Like anyone, we've got a business to run. And so on day one, that emergent stuff, we're going to make sure that the connections are there, that email is in place in a hurry. We're going to message the market with why we're doing this. Although the name Barry-Wehmiller is not well known, we don't tend to change the names of our companies. They still retain all those brand names that they were in the marketplace. On day two, which is urgent, not emergent, you're going to find things like the financial consolidation. We're going to go out there and we're going to make sure your numbers roll up. We start collecting that information. We're going to get the AD changed over, the IP, and start looking at your domain migrations. But in the other areas, we take a much more measured approach. We introduce our standards, but our standards are pretty wide. We try to create rails, not a single rail, but two of them, and we need you to stay in between those. I may go up to the head of engineering and I'll say, we do SolidWorks, you guys are using Pro-E, that's fine. If you need a couple more seats, we'll buy them for you. But the next time that you need to upgrade, and it's in that 150, 200,000, 250 range, we're going to be talking about moving over to SolidWorks. So they've got the warning, and then over the next X amount of time, we'll make sure that that head of engineering speaks to other engineering heads elsewhere in the company and finds out, hey, this isn't a bad thing, this is a good product, so that they're looking forward to it instead of opposing those things. It isn't a perfect system. Some people will continue to oppose. They're waiting for me to retire or die so that I'll change the rules. But in the for the most part, if you treat people in this fashion, they tend to come on board with you. The collaboration is huge for us. One of the other things that we do is we have a replenishment program. I'm not sure it's unique. We created it many, many years ago. But basically what we do is we take the IT inventory, or capital inventory, and multiply it at the current price. So you might have a $2 million asset base of items, PCs, printers, servers, and what have you. And then we take 20% of that. We say, okay, there's 400,000. That's your money, IT. You don't need to go to anyone to spend that money. That's yours to keep your existing asset base running. It's no different than changing the oil in your car, rotating the tiles. You've got to keep this thing going. And that money, in the tightest of times, even in 2008, replenishment did not get cut, will not get cut, because you're only stealing from your future. So those are the kinds of things that we introduce during the acquisitions to get people to embrace the new culture and approach. And of course, our culture and leadership itself gets in there. We have our university. We have different people come in from different parts of the organization to talk to the groups and let them know how we operate as a family. The rest of it, there's no, I missed a slide. There's no change for change's sake. If we're going to do a software overhaul, we don't believe that a software overhaul is heart surgery for a company. You just got acquired. People are nervous. You acquired them likely because they're in trouble, and now you're going to shake up in the tools that they're used to produce. It makes no sense to us. So again, we do that over time. And to wrap up here, what's that? Okay, basically what everything what we do is, very purposeful. We have a persuade versus edict approach to business. We stay true to our core. We buy things we know. We stay in the businesses that we understand. We're not out there. We're not going to go and take Hussman's business and start building refrigerators, okay? We're the ones that make the product that go inside those. We help you get your product into those refrigerators. We take the long view. We're acquiring to grow. We haven't sold a company. So when we go in with that mentality, people seek us out to acquire them because it's a company that we don't come in and start chopping you up and selling off bits and pieces of it. The DNA, our culture, and our leadership is a matter of sharing, engaging, and all of that is demonstrable. Okay, it's not just words. Acquisitions are fun. They really are. Every one of my folks will complain about acquisitions because suddenly they're having to fly off and you're away from the family for a while. But I dare you to take acquisitions off the table. It'll be like taking the crack away from them. They are going to go into serious convulsions. We wondered because we had been quite successful with the acquisitions and with our businesses growing. If that magic formula of culture and leadership was translatable or transferable to other industries. We didn't want to risk our business in doing so. So 5 years ago, a little over 5 years I think now, we created a private equity group called Foresight Capital. And their mission was, I think we gave them, I want to say 200 million. Go out, find businesses that make sense, using our principles, see if it works. And the very first thing that they bought was an insurance company. If you have a major storm, a major hailstorm, tsunami, whatever it is, our folks are the adjusters. They're the ones that go out, because State Farm doesn't have thousands of adjusters, they hire us. And we go out and do that adjusting. So we're kind of like that car company that is okay with you getting your dents because they get to get them out, you know. We kind of win when there are disasters, but what we'd like to think is that we're getting people their money to get back to their lives more quickly. But the good news is that the company has grown dramatically, and it's an area, a business that is splintered. It's a bunch of entrepreneurs, and you normally do not see it come together. That's why there were a bunch of small ones. Now we're one of the largest. So we've done that. We've done a medical equipment company. It's been an interesting run. So that gives you a sense of what we've done at Barry-Wehmiller. So, any questions? Good. Oh, there is one.
I think I've heard you before at the Gateway Convention. You spoke there 2 years ago.
I did.
And at the time, I think you shared that you don't really rip and replace the IT systems at these acquired companies. You pretty much leave them the way they're. It's different than what we've heard other speakers talk about, and bringing everybody together in one unified system. Can you talk a little bit about your success with your approach and why you do that?
Our approach, the end game is the same. We will get everybody on the same system. Okay? The difference is we see no need to do that in the first 6 months. Instead, we're kind of, in addition to be purposeful, we're also opportunistic. We set a vision. We want you to be here at some point in the future. And now what we look for is that opportunity. You got to make a major investment. You want to move to the cloud. You just had an acquisition of your own, and your systems will no longer handle that. We seize upon those opportunities to go ahead and make the play to get you onto our standards. So as quickly as we acquire companies, and with the diversity of software that is out there, I could tell you that our ERP application standard is XA. I've got it in 65% of my businesses, but I'm running it 29 different ways. So the fact that you've got the same standard, you know, what we look for is we try to narrow it down to 2 or 3 standards that fit the various platforms that we're operating in. That way we can man them, provide appropriate support, get the advantage of leveraging our contracts with our vendors. So our goal is the same as everybody else. We just take a slightly different approach to getting there. Yeah.
From a regulatory perspective, is the way that Barry-Wehmiller is grouped up, is it kind of keeps those regulatory things in the lanes? That way the IT solutions don't have, you can kind of customize them in the lanes, or do you have to manage that?
We take the approach, it was interesting when we got into Europe, we found more and more demand from a regulatory standpoint. And everybody uses this term, Germany is the worst, okay? And my response to that is, no, it's not, it's the best, okay? They actually are serious about keeping personal information personal, okay? And if we set our goals to beating that regulatory need, we're going to have everybody, so we raised the bar for all of Barry-Wehmiller to meet that need. And we're sure to meet anything the US has to say. So and again, it's not easy. I had one of my IT directors, when he found out that they get to veto his initiatives, that didn't set well with him. So it was a good coaching moment. Okay, thanks all.